Imagine a man barely in his 30s, who had already conquered almost the entire known world. A military genius, a legendary leader, worshipped by his soldiers as if he were a living god. And then within just a few days he suddenly fell gravely ill, burning with fever, and died, without leaving behind a clear explanation. The death of Alexander the Great, the man who once stood at the very peak of power, who forced mighty Persia to its knees, remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in human history. What really killed one of the greatest kings the world has ever known? Was it a deadly disease, a cunning assassination, or perhaps even a curse from the very lands he had conquered? Alexander III of Macedon, known to the world as Alexander the Great, was born in 356 BC. From a young age, he was taught by none other than the great philosopher Aristotle himself. And at just 20 years old, Alexander ascended to the throne of Macedon after the death of his father, King Philip II. But Alexander was not content with merely inheriting the crown. In just 13 short years of rule, he led the Macedonian army to forge a vast empire that stretched from Greece, Persia, and Egypt, all the way to India. He redrew the map of the ancient world. What's truly remarkable is that Alexander never lost a single battle. Legendary victories at Issus, at Gaugamela, and the Lightning Campaign in Egypt cemented his status as an eternal icon of military strategy. And yet, just as he stood at the height of his glory, at the young age of 32, Alexander suddenly collapsed. His shocking and untimely death gave birth to countless theories and debates, discussions that continue more than 2,000 years later. Let's travel back to the summer of 323 BC. Alexander was in Babylon, the legendary city by the Euphrates River, now the capital of his newly conquered empire. He was preparing for yet another grand campaign, to march westward and extend his dominion across the Arabian Peninsula. On May 29th of that year, Alexander attended a lavish banquet at the palace of Nebuchadnezzar. According to multiple accounts, during the feast, he consumed a large amount of wine, a common habit for him. Not long after, he began experiencing severe abdominal pain, followed by a high fever. Over the next several days, his condition worsened dramatically. Constant fever, delirium, loss of speech, and eventually paralysis. His soldiers, stricken with grief, lined up to silently pass by their dying king's bedside just to see him one last time. But here's the strange part: Alexander did not die right away. Ancient records indicate he lingered in bed for more than 10 days before finally taking his last breath. Some even claimed that after he was declared dead, his body showed no signs of decay for several days, a chilling detail that many believed was proof of divine power. Or at least that his death was anything but ordinary. On June 10th, 323 BC, Alexander the Great died, leaving behind a massive empire, but no clear heir. From that moment on, history was plunged into endless debate. How did he truly die? Theories about Alexander's death. The sudden death of Alexander the Great created a massive power vacuum and sparked the wars of succession that followed. But what fascinates historians, doctors, and even myth lovers the most is this: what really killed him? For more than 2,000 years, countless theories have been proposed. Yet, to this day, there's no definitive answer. Theory 1. Death by illness. Many researchers believe Alexander may have died from an infectious disease. Malaria. Babylon was surrounded by marshlands, a perfect breeding ground for mosquitoes. Some historians argue that Alexander contracted malignant malaria from Anopheles mosquitoes, leading to high fever, delirium, and ultimately death. Typhoid fever. Another theory is typhoid, caused by contaminated water. This would match the severe abdominal pain and prolonged fever recorded in ancient accounts. Acute pancreatitis from alcohol. We know Alexander was notorious for heavy drinking. Some modern doctors suggest his excessive alcohol consumption may have triggered acute pancreatitis, which explains the intense abdominal pain and eventual death. The problem with the illness theory is this: most of these diseases kill rather quickly. Yet Alexander lingered for over 10 days, which raises doubts. Theory 2. Poisoning. One of the most popular and dramatic theories is that Alexander was assassinated with poison. Imagine this: a young, powerful king preparing for new conquests. Around him were not only enemies, but also ambitious friends eager to seize power. Political motives. After Alexander's death, his empire plunged into chaos, with his generals fighting for control. Clearly, many stood to gain from his disappearance. Ancient poisons. Both the Greeks and Persians were skilled in using herbs and minerals as poison. Could someone have slipped a deadly substance into his wine during that fateful banquet? The issue is, most poisons of that time acted quickly. Alexander, however, endured days of agony. Some scholars argue that if he was poisoned, it must have been with something rare and slow-acting, like white hellebore, a plant known to cause gradual weakness and decline. Theory 3. Mystical explanations. With a figure as legendary as Alexander, it's no surprise that supernatural theories exist. The curse of Babylon. Legend says priests warned Alexander that entering Babylon would bring disaster. He ignored them, and shortly afterward, he fell ill. Divine intervention. Some Greeks believed the gods struck him down because of his arrogance. Alexander had claimed to be the son of Zeus. His sudden death, and especially the claim that his body did not decompose for days, was seen as signs of divine involvement. So, what really killed Alexander the Great? Was it a tropical disease, a calculated assassination, or a curse from the gods? Ancient records don't give us enough detail to know for sure. Modern medical analysis only offers educated guesses. And it's this mystery, the silence between the facts, that has kept Alexander's death one of history's greatest unsolved enigmas. The aftermath of Alexander's death. Imagine this, an empire stretching from Greece, across Egypt, all the way to India. A king at just 32 years old, at the very peak of his power, suddenly collapses, leaving no clear heir. What happens next? The collapse of an empire. After Alexander's death, his closest generals, known as the Diadochi, immediately fell into a bloody struggle for power. At first, the plan was to give the throne to Alexander's unborn child with Roxana, but while waiting, who would rule? The generals refused to yield. They divided the empire, crowned themselves kings, and fought endless wars. The result? Alexander's vast empire shattered into smaller kingdoms: Egypt under Ptolemy, the Seleucid realm in Asia, Macedonia, Pergamon, and more. It proved one bitter truth: while Alexander could conquer the world, his death caused it all to collapse in an instant. Yet, even though the empire broke apart, Alexander's influence never disappeared. The Greek language spread across the Middle East, North Africa, and Asia. Cities named Alexandria sprang up, becoming centers of culture and science for centuries. Scholars, philosophers, and scientists thrived in this environment, from Euclid in mathematics to Archimedes in mechanics. In other words, Alexander's mysterious death gave way to a new era, the Hellenistic Age, where Greek and Eastern cultures fused into something entirely new. The body that did not decay, another mystery. But the story doesn't end there. Ancient accounts say Alexander's body did not decompose for days, even though it wasn't embalmed right away. To many, this was proof he wasn't just a man, but a living god. Soldiers believed this confirmed Alexander truly was the son of Zeus. Modern medicine suggests another eerie possibility. Perhaps Alexander suffered from a rare neurological disorder that left him in a state of pseudothanatos, a false death. Meaning, when everyone thought he was gone, he may have still been alive, unable to move or breathe visibly. If that's true, Alexander might have been buried alive, fully conscious. One of the most chilling theories ever proposed. And so, when we talk about Alexander the Great's death, it's not just a historical event, it's an unsolved mystery. Was it disease, poisoning, or a divine curse? Did he truly die, or was he entombed alive? And perhaps the greatest question of all, if Alexander had lived just 10 or 20 more years, would our world today look completely different? Historians still argue over this mystery, and maybe always will. Alexander the Great, he conquered the world, yet could not conquer fate. His death remains one of history's greatest unanswered questions. But what about you? Do you believe Alexander died from illness, was poisoned, or that the gods themselves intervened? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take on this legendary mystery. And don't forget, if you enjoy stories where history and science collide with the unknown, hit subscribe and turn on the so you won't miss the next video. Because who knows, maybe one day, we'll finally uncover the truth behind the greatest mysteries of humankind.